You are listening to Making It in the Toy Industry, episode 274.
Welcome to Making It in the Toy Industry, a podcast for inventors, entrepreneurs, and makers like you. And now, your host, Azhelle Wade.
Hey there, toy people. Azhelle Wade here, and welcome back to another episode of Making It in the Toy Industry. This is a weekly podcast brought to you by thetoycoach.com. Today, I want to talk about your dreams, specifically a dream you might have about becoming a toy industry renowned game designer. Imagine developing a game that's complex yet simple, one that requires players to strategically think and learn about something that you love. Imagine taking a hobby you love to the tabletop world only to have the world fall in love with it as much as you fell in love with your hobby. For me, the dream of transforming my love for salsa, bachata dancing into a board game that people would love, would just be a dream come true. But today we're going to be learning from someone who made that dream a reality, Elizabeth Hargrave. She took her passion for birding and transformed it into Wingspan, a game that didn't just land on shelves, it soared, winning the 2019 Kennerspiel des Jahres and refining what a nature-inspired game could be. Whether you're just playtesting your first game, prototype, or you're knee-deep in the development process, this episode is a big opportunity to learn from a game designer who is on a hot streak in our industry, how she got there and how you can too. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. What an intro.
Well, yeah, I would do a little special for you. You know, make it a little fun. So welcome. We just kind of happened to go to a after party. Where were we at? Games for Change?
So I was in New York for
Games for Change. Yeah. And then we just ended up in the same group and ended up on this beautiful balcony with these cool people.
Yeah. I mean, games people are fun people, right?
Yeah. We did hang out with Eric Lang, right? At that time too.
Eric was there.
Yeah. I remember.
Tanya Thompson.
Tanya was there.
Hasbro was there.
Dougal was there. It's so funny because like when I end up in these rooms, I had no idea that you were Elizabeth Hargrave, and I did know about Wingspan, obviously. Everyone talks about it. I think I texted my husband. I'm like, I'm like in a room with like Tanya and Dougal and Elizabeth. And my husband, who now works at Hasbro, was like, I've never even met her. He's like, how did you end up in this room? I'm like, I don't know. Eric Lang is like talking about like, there were some deep conversations happening about like society. And I was like, there's a lot going on in here. This room is very full of intelligence. It was great. So I want to talk about two things today. But before we dive in, finish this sentence for me. The thing that surprised me most about the toy and game industry was...
Oh my gosh. I'll say specifically for board games, the thing that surprised me most is how many successful board game companies are somebody's side gig.
Oh, that's a good one.
There are companies that when you see their name on the box, you think this is like an office with people in it, and it's someone running a business like in their spare time.
Yeah, that's crazy. And is it like, are they successful or are they just like they have to do both?
Some of them have to do both. Board games is a tough industry and it's a crowded industry.
Yes.
And I think it's probably very wise to start it as a side gig and then quit your day job once you know you're making it, right?
100%. I had Jeremy Posner on the podcast a few weeks back, and he said if I were to give someone advice, it would be to start this career as a game inventor as a side hustle. And I was like, you didn't even do that. And he was like, yeah, but he's like, that would have been the smart thing to do. So first thing I want to talk about is the Tabletop Game Designers Association. You co-founded this association. What is it, and what gap are you looking to fill in the industry?
Yeah, so it is an organization that's looking to serve specifically folks who are designing games, both board games and role-playing games. And, we've been trying to not bite off more than we can chew, and we just finished our first year of existence. But we've got sort of pillars that we're trying to build community in the gaming space. We're trying to help sort of advocate with and for designers, both sort of publicly. So I'm going to join a lobbying day that in a couple of weeks on tariffs, right? Because those are definitely affecting us. And also advocating on a smaller scale for individual designers with individual publishers as they're negotiating contracts We do contract reviews for folks and sort of have a checklist of things that you can look for yourself or that will help you look for in a contract. And we've had some really good success giving people language to suggest to publishers and getting things fixed. And advocacy, just like in terms of like when the Origins Awards were announced this year, the nominees, they listed the games as if they were by publishers and never mentioned the designer names, little nitpicky things like that. And then we have sort of a set of stuff that we're trying to do around education. We're running seminars at different gaming conventions. We've got a series of webinars that members can join in on. We just had one last night, actually, where the Gina Davis Institute came and talked about a tool that they've developed for people to think about character design and more inclusion and diversity when you're designing characters.
The TTGDA, is it a nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit.
Awesome.
Yes.
So if someone wants to participate in it, what do they need to know? How do they get involved?
You can just go to our website, which is ttgda.org, and there are some different membership options for folks who want to vote for the board and also get the contract review type services that I was talking about. It's $100 a year, but there's an associate membership that's sort of discounted if you want to be just watching the webinars and things like that.
Awesome.
And I will always take donations on top.
Yes.
So we've got a premium membership.
I will put the links in the show notes. I mean, that's awesome. I hope that you guys can stay as closely tied to your pillars as you are today, because we all know certain associations, as they get larger, tend to veer off course. So it's very important that we keep you on your focus of what your pillars are, which I'm sure that's a priority of yours as well.
Yeah, and we're just trying to work with a lot of folks have already spun up little, mentorship programs, and there's a great organization called Cardboard Edison that does like game designer surveys and has a lot of resources, and we don't want to like reinvent any of those wheels either. So we've been trying to sort of coordinate with people and try and plug the holes that we were seeing. And for me as a new game designer, the contract stuff was a big one for sure.
No, that's so great. That's so helpful. I'd love to put this in as a resource as well it'll be here on the podcast, but I also want to link certain parts in TCA for my students to know exactly where. I do link a lot of Cardboard Edison. They have like a great compendium list.
Yes.
Yeah, so I link that in my programs on this site too. Community building. How has TTGDA fostered a sense of community among tabletop game designers? What do you guys have events? Do you have a Facebook group?
We have a Discord. I would say is the most active place. And so, you see folks on there all the time asking for advice about pitching, or I have this specific thing I'm trying to do in a game design. What should I be looking at? How could I approach this? So that's been really fun to see that get sort of some robust participation from folks, because Discord is a very hit or miss. Like you need that critical mass to get going for it to actually feel worthwhile.
Yes, so true.
So that's been fun.
And it's so hard. Some people that don't know how to use it, it's like you can't teach. It's like you have to want to get into Discord. You have to know not to respond to everyone that messages you, because there are a lot of I've gotten a lot of scam messages on Discord.
Right. And it's key to also set your notifications in a way that doesn't make your phone explode.
Yeah. It's a learning curve. I think in 5 years, my audience will be fully ready for Discord, but I've tried it once or twice and everyone's like, Azhelle, what is this? And I'm like, all right, never mind. We'll go back to Facebook. I don't, my people aren't ready yet. They're not ready. It's too much.
Yeah, and I've my first couple experiences when I got offered to join a Discord were with Discords that were too large and active almost, and I just found it totally overwhelming. But now I have one that's local game designers here in the DC area that is just lovely and perfect, and then the TTGDA one I'm really appreciating too.
Oh, that's lovely. Lucky you. I want to be next. Make my active Discord. So what are your plans for TTGDA? What are the plans for the next few years? Anything you want to share about what's coming up?
Yeah, I think we're still feeling that out. We just had our first election. So we've got a couple new board members, and I think we'll be working on that. We would love to hear from folks about what they think would be most helpful. Definitely going to spin out some more white papers. We put out one on the tariffs a few weeks ago and are working on one on contract issues. And I think we'll be looking at other issues too, where we can weigh in on where we're not recreating the wheel. Like there's lots of stuff out there about game design more generally and sort of the craft of game design. And there's much less about how to actually survive in a more of a business sense and a professional sense in the industry. So I think we're focused a little bit more on that right now, and we'll continue to take input from folks. And I think one of our like nitty gritty goals for this year is to get some committees going so that we can have more people sort of contributing and working on projects under our umbrella instead of just me and Jeff and Sen getting everything done.
No, that is the challenge, especially with a nonprofit. Okay, let's go into what everyone's here for, your success with Wingspan and the upcoming game Sanibel that you've got coming out. So what inspired Wingspan? What made you think I can turn this hobby into a board game?
Right, so it was already a hobby. Some people ask me that. I'm like, were you a birder? I was like, yes. It did not just randomly occur to me to make a board game about birds.
Yeah.
I'm a big birder. And I was playing a lot of hobby board games, strategy games, and loving the feels of the mechanics of the games, but not so much the like what they were about, right? Because there's an awful lot of like European trading and trains and colonialism and what would it be like to have a game that wasn't about those things? Yeah, my spouse literally was like, we were playing a lot of Race for the Galaxy at the time, which is another engine builder, and he was like, what would it look like to have like Race for the Galaxy, but it was birds? And that was sort of the jumping off part. My brain wouldn't let it go.
Let's talk about engine builder. We haven't talked about like that specific mechanic of engine building. Like define it. How to describe the first game, Race to the Galaxy? I haven't played that.
Yeah, so Race for the Galaxy is a card-based game, and you're playing cards out in front of you, and there's different actions you can take, and the cards that you play often will have ways that they let you do more as part of one of those actions that you've picked. So I'm producing goods, and if I have 4 production cards in front of me, that's better than having 0 production cards in front of me, right? So as I have played those 4 cards out, each time I do that produce action, the action itself gets better because I've played the cards. And Wingspan works kind of like that too, right? As you're playing birds on your player mat, the birds that you have on your mat are making the actions that you can take stronger. In Wingspan, there's sort of a double system going on. So like not all of the birds have a thing that they let you do, but just the fact of playing them on your player mat makes your actions better. So there's 3 actions you can take. You can gain food in one row of cards. You can lay eggs, which are points, in one row, and you can draw cards in another row. And so if I say I'm going to the card row, I want to draw cards. The default, if you have played no birds there, is that you get to draw 1 card. But as you play, if you've played 2 birds in that row, now you're drawing 2 cards every turn. If you've played more birds in the row, you're drawing more and more cards just from the fact that the birds are there. And then many of the birds have on the bottom of them an extra thing that you also get to do when you're using that row of cards. So you start out with these wimpy little turns, just draw a card. And by the end, it's like, okay, I'm drawing 4 cards, and then I'm spending some of them to get points, and I'm getting a food, and I'm doing all this stuff all on that same turn.
So what you play in one turn increases what you can do in future turns. Sounds a little bit like resource building, maybe a little like Catan in the sense of building up resources and creating something with them later.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Like the concept of engine building, not necessarily
Right.
Wingspan.
I actually think Monopoly is an engine builder.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Because you're buying stuff,
Yeah.
and that stuff is making you stronger over the course of the game.
Did the theme expand on the gameplay, or was it just kind of like a skin at first? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like sometimes people just put a theme and you're like, that just looks like you
Right.
just put makeup on a pig. But there are times when your theme can actually expand the gameplay. Like, was there a moment where you're like, wait a second, this actually adds to the game, not just changes the look of it.
Right. Right. So I would say I probably started with mostly a skin, but those powers that I was talking about that the birds have on them that make your actions better, I was able to make some of them actually references to the actual birds.
Yeah.
So there's a bird called a brown-headed cowbird
Okay.
that has the characteristic that it lays its eggs in other birds' nests. It has learned how to get away without raising its own young.
Wow. Okay.
Which
Genius.
is kind of remarkable. And so I always wanted that to be a thing in the game. So when people take the action of laying eggs, if you have a brown-headed cowbird, you also get to lay eggs because you're piggybacking on their egg laying. And so little things like that that are like references to the behavior of the birds, I definitely tried to work in. And I think even just the fact that all the resources are the things that the birds actually eat and, things like that, even though it is in one way just theme, it's like so integrated that I think it gives you a feeling of immersion that it doesn't feel pasted on. I think that's part of why people like it.
So I had this question planned to ask you, like, about how a lot of inventors have an idea and they want to create a game, and when they're new, they normally just jump to the idea of like roll and move or pull a card and move. But you started from a place of a complex game mechanic. It was more like you personally enjoyed a certain type of board game, but not the theme around it. So as you move forward and you're inventing new games and new things, is this going to change the way that you invent? Like, are you, instead of, are you going to let the games you already enjoy lead you to say, oh, what if this was done differently thematically? As opposed to maybe combining a bunch of different mechanics and elements? Like, has the success of Wingspan changed how you invent?
I don't know if it's really from the success of Wingspan or just like practice as a game designer or how my brain works, but I would say usually my jumping off point is, number one, oh, that's a cool thing in the world. People should know about that. And then number two, okay, what would that be in a game mechanic? So I did a game called Mariposas. It's about the migration of monarch butterflies.
Okay.
And that I was like, okay, so there has to be a map. The butterflies have to be moving around, and I have to come up with incentives that are causing the butterflies to move basically in a way that feels like that migration pattern. I've played a lot of games that involve movement on a map. So that's like, yes, I'm kind of riffing on those, but mostly it was like, okay, this is a story I want to tell. This is a thing I want to tell people about, and what conveys that information.
Oh, really interesting. So like the migration of the monarch butterflies, is that what you said, is what inspired you? Like, people need to know, like, people should know about how cool this migration is. And because you're a board game designer, you're like, board game people need to know how cool this migration is. How would I make my board game friends know? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, or like, you mentioned Sanibel that's coming out next year.
Yeah.
And that was literally my dad while we were at the beach just being like, there should be a game about collecting seashells on the beach. I was like, there should be a game about that. Why isn't there a game about that? And so that one again was like, okay, so what if you were literally walking along the beach? So there's a board and you're moving your pieces along the board. And as you move your pieces, you get to pick up tiles that have shells on them. So it's like very much from that, like, okay, the story of this game is that you're walking along the beach. Let's actually walk along a beach.
Well, let's talk through a turn of Sanibel real quick. How does a turn start? Do you roll? How does it play?
You get to decide how far forward you go. But the board is divided up into 7 sections, I think it is. And within each section, there's a bunch of shells sitting there. And there are multiple footprints on that section. And if you go the farthest forward in the section, you get the most shells. So I might jump ahead and land on the 3 footprint, which gives me 3 shells from that space. But the twist is, if you've played Takedo, it's Takedo style movement. It's a time track. Basically, the person who is in the back of the line always goes next. So there's a series of spaces that you can move, but instead of rolling a die to tell you how far forward you get to go, you get to choose how far forward to go. The trick is that you're not taking turns just in a turn order around the table. You're taking turns by who's in back. So the person who has moved the least or is just farthest back on the track, they get to go next. And if there are spaces
Interesting.
available, they might be able to go twice before you get your next turn if you jumped
If you
farther
jump so
forward.
far.
But there are benefits to jumping forward because you get first dibs on the shells. You might get the most shells. So there's a tension there of like, I really want that thing, but can I afford to like not jump forward and bide my time and get more shells on the way? Or should I just jump and get the thing?
This is so interesting because it's like I want to almost lay a visual of like two columns of how a newbie inventor might approach inventing a game like Sanibel versus how your mind thinks about designing a game like Sanibel. So like a newbie inventor might say, oh, there should be a game about collecting seashells on the beach. And they might even go as simple as to think like memory card collection, like, oh, we're going to have a bunch of cards with seashells on them and you're going to match them. Or we're going to have a bunch of cards and you're going to pull one and you have to identify the seashell or something before you can like move to a space, or let's say. And those games can over time develop and grow, but there's so much more depth in the way that you approach it where you're thinking like, how do you express the experience of hunting for seashells and actually translate what happens in real life to board game life? And then that makes you go, well, you walk and you look wherever you want. So the idea of a random dice roll wouldn't be the best way to express that. What other ways are there to express that? Like, that's kind of how it seems like your brain is working.
That's part of it. And I think the other piece of it is that I'm always looking for how to give people interesting decisions to think about. And like, so if I get to make an interesting decision on every turn, I'm like, oh, I want to go forward, but I want to bide my time, like that I think makes it a much richer gameplay experience.
How many decisions are you looking for people to make every turn? What? I have many questions.
I think that's the key that you really have to refine, is that you don't want the options to be so wide open that people feel
overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. But if you can give just that like pleasant level of tension without overwhelm, that's a lot of what I'm looking for, I think. Yeah, the other thing with Sanibel that evolved as I was working on the game is that I started out, actually the shells were just cards and you were picking them, and it was collecting sets of things, and I actually wanted like another little level of thinkiness to it, so they ended up being tiles that you're placing onto your own personal little player mat.
Yes.
And so then there are rules about like what wants to be next to what, and are you trying to get big contiguous groups or separate groups, so the different types of shells have different rules for placement. So there's that interesting decision in picking them up at all, and then interesting decisions about how do you solve the puzzle of where they should go on your board.
What's your favorite? I feel like Wingspan or Sanibel. Which one is your favorite right now? Because I'm feeling like I'm hearing a pull in one direction more than the other. I
can't pick my baby.
I know. You have to choose one.
I mean, yeah, I'm always super excited for the next thing that's coming, but it's hard to not super value the success of Wingspan and everything that comes with that.
Talk to me about the early days of pitching Wingspan. I want to hear your first pitch. What happened? Did they love it instantly, or were people like, no one wants a game about birds? Please stop. Like, what happened?
Yeah, so I had been playtesting. At some point, my playtester started asking me if they could buy my prototype. I was like, all right, maybe it is time to pitch.
Oh, wow.
I did not know anyone in the industry, really. That's not true. I was playtesting some with other published designers. But like in terms of setting up meetings, I was literally just cold emailing people. I set up a bunch of meetings at Gen Con.
Wait, was this your first game?
This is my first game.
I didn't know that. I assumed it wasn't because I was like, it's like gold. So what?
It was wild. So.
What? This was your first game? That's not fair.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. It's
what?
Not how it usually happens.
Congratulations. I mean,
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was cold emailing people and setting up meetings, which is very different now, right? Like I don't have to try hard.
Now they call you and they're like, we would love an exclusive. Could you not invent for anyone else? Thanks.
So I set up meetings. It was terrifying. I
Wow.
remember one thing that I did that was super helpful
Yeah.
was right before I went and did the pitch meetings, I actually took out my phone and I was like recording myself doing the first like couple minutes of like, this is my game, couple minute description, and then just ending with like, we've got 15 or 20 minutes. I could show you a few turns if you want, and like, what questions do you have? That was super helpful because I had to do it like approximately a zillion times. But by the end of it, I was getting through it without stumbling.
Yeah.
Which I think helped me because then when you're in the pitch, you're like on so much adrenaline and like nerves that if you haven't done that practice, I think like I could have completely fallen apart. But I kind of had the muscle memory of doing it because I had done it so many times and filmed myself and forced myself to watch myself doing it and realizing like where I was stumbling and what was awkward. And I'm super glad I did that. So then, so I pitched it to 3 different companies at Gen Con, and one of them was Stonemaier. They had a bunch of feedback for me. They did not instantly love it. It was a simpler, very different game at the point of pitching. So they like gave me a bunch of feedback and they were like, send us another version of this. Like, we think there's something here.
Oh, okay.
Go work on our feedback. Send us. I guess actually first they asked me by this. So this was by email after Gen Con, like, what would you do to address our feedback? And so I sent them this email that, like, thank God I had taken notes on all this stuff that they had. And I sent them an email saying, like, this is what I would do. I think these could be the next steps. And they were like, great, that all sounds good. Send us that. So I took a couple months and worked on it for a while and sent it to them. And then by the end of the year, we had a contract.
Wow. That doesn't always happen. That's so wonderful. How did you think of pitching to them? What drew you to Stonemaier?
Yeah, so that was a hard question of like, because no one was doing games like this. So who should I pitch it to?
Right.
And it was actually viticulture in their catalog that I don't know what it is about that game that kind of gave me it was just like a gut feel thing, but it's like, it's a very real world feeling game, viticulture, and sort of pleasant engine buildy, like, something about that. So it was just that one game in their catalog that made me think, because the game that they had just had come out was Scythe, which like that would never have made me think, I should pitch Wingspan to Stonemaier Games.
No. Where'd you first hear about them?
I think viticulture and then Scythe, like that they were on my radar. And I was just like literally going through the list of all the companies that were going to be exhibiting at Gen Con and like looking at their catalog. And
wow.
Trying to figure it out.
That is incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
So within a year then talk to me about the liftoff of Wingspan. So how long, pun intended. So how long before you were like, oh, this is like a big deal?
Jamie Stegmaier at Stonemaier Games started teasing it. So they did direct to retail, although I guess like the first launch was really direct sales off their website. And they have a big mailing list. It's a very successful strategy for them. So he started teasing it to his followers at the end of 2018. And there was a little sense just at that point that people were kind of excited for this in a way that we did not anticipate. He had reached out to distributors trying to figure out how many to print, and they were like, I don't know, like, first time designer, game about birds, like, what's up with that?
Right, like we're not really that excited. We don't think we think you're a little cray actually.
Yeah. So I think just from the reaction he was getting from the teasers he was putting on Facebook, he already ordered another print run.
Oh, wow.
But it took a while to catch up. So he put his first print run up for sale and it sold out very fast, like within days.
Wow. What? Wait, and this is like, you didn't have a following that you were pushing to them. Wow.
No, I had been doing a little bit like on social media, trying to like make connections with other people in the industry and like going to board gaming stuff. But no, I didn't have like a real following. But Stonemaier does. And Jamie personally does.
So like, but it seems then you really just identified a massive hole. Like there were no birding games. Like, not that anybody would ever be like, what's really missing in the industry. Like nobody would say that. That's like saying, what we're missing a salsa dancing game. When is someone going to do that? But
well, yeah, I mean, in the last 5 years, a lot of nature-themed games have come up, and at that time, there were not a ton of
interesting.
nature-themed games, and I think
Yeah.
it's that more generally of just people wanting that connection
Yeah. That's crazy.
to that part of the world. Everyone has some way that they connect to birds more than they connect to like the medieval French city of Carcassonne, right? Like,
Yes. Yes. I do not connect to a medieval French city. What's amazing. So it's sold out immediately. Then what happened? Like, at what point were you called and they were like, Elizabeth, we have something. We need you to like, what happened? Like, did the world open up for you and how did that happen?
yeah, I think it was that March I got an email from the New York Times wanting to do a profile of me.
Oh my gosh. And what were you
I think that
thinking?
was like the next rung of the like, okay, your game is now like sold out and like going for hundreds of dollars on eBay and whatever. And so now the New York Times wants to interview you. The science editor of the New York Times is a board gamer and was like on the Stonemeyer
Okay.
mailing list. And so was getting like emails from Jamie. Jamie wrote an email at one point apologizing that he hadn't printed board games because
Are you
people were so mad.
serious? What?
So he got all of that and was like, we got to do like, this is science. It's a game about science. We can do,
Wow.
yeah. So that was super fun.
Oh
And
my
then like
God.
once the New York Times thinks your news, then like it's snowballed from there. And then I would say the next key point was getting nominated for the Kennerspiel des Jahres, which within sort of strategy board games is a really big deal. People call it like the Oscars of board games. So that the nominations just come out. So that was like in May that I got nominated, and then the award is in July. So winning it is like the next level. So that was that July. So this was all in the course of like 7-8 months.
Oh my gosh.
From like,
So
oh, this could be a thing to
that's
like sold out New York Times Kennerspiel. Like, yeah.
And then what happened with Sanibel? So now you're just this hot on fire game designer who just hit it out of the park her first game and is so cool that everyone thinks she's just been doing this for years. So what happened next? Like, how did Sanibel come to be?
Oh, well, there's a bunch of games in between.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I guess I connected to Sanibel because I know.
Yeah.
I guess I'm hiding info that I know.
So yeah, I've had a few other games come out and they've done like perfectly nicely by board game standards, and it's been super fun. And Sanibel, I was playtesting at the Gathering of Friends, which is a gathering of board game designers and industry people that happens every year. And Tanya Thompson, who I'm friends with at Hasbro, was like, oh, do you have anything to pitch to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it is not ready to pitch, but I'm going to be playtesting this game with people at the gathering if you want to get in on a playtest and you could see like if you would one day want me to pitch it to you.
Oh.
And so she came and played it and offered me an option pretty quickly after.
She was like, we're not messing this up again. We're just gonna lock this one in before anyone sees this. Anyone finds out what's going on here.
I had actually gotten an offer a couple weeks earlier
Are
than
you
that
serious?
at Unpub. Like people like this game.
Oh,
I'm excited for it to come out.
Oh wow.
But it's, you know what, it's really, so this is the flip side of like, okay, one end of the spectrum is like brand new designers just like scrapping to get meetings even, and the other end now is like, I am scared sometimes that publishers want my game, whether they actually like stop to think about whether it's good or not. And I feel like I have to like stop and have that like reflection and checks to make sure that stuff doesn't get signed just because it's me, that we still have to like put in the work. Right?
Oh, 100%. No offense. It is going to happen just because it's you. I feel like it happens with any celebrity. It becomes your responsibility, like you're saying, to make sure it's good because they just trust you and your following so much that they're going to just be like, well, listen, if Elizabeth says this is a good game, then this is a good game. So I think actually,
and so I think part of that was like, you know, being like, this game isn't actually where I would pitch it yet.
Yeah.
Like, this still needs work, and like being aware of that. And then even once I have the contract, like, right, no, we're going to keep working on this for a while.
Well, because they see the potential now. So now it's no longer them really seeing your game. They're seeing you as potential. So they're like, this has bones and that's all we need to know, because we know Elizabeth's going to take it further and then that's it. But that's actually really interesting. I wonder if as you continue to grow, are you going to want or need to hire somebody to be like to be honest, like someone on your team who is just gonna like be completely honest with you, so that you don't let something go out and then and then it tanks and then you ruin your reputation.
Right.
That's interesting.
We have a great community of board game designers here in the DC area, and I feel like they can be that sort of sounding board of like they've been there from the beginning, some of them for me, and they'll tell me when I'm full.
That's so interesting. So which side do you like being on better? The side where you're desperately trying to get a response back from an email, or the side where you're avoiding phone calls because they just won't stop? No? Your phone's off the hook. Which side do you enjoy the most?
I'm not going to turn down my success. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been great. Okay, that's good to hear. That's good. Sometimes people are like, oh, I miss the days when I could be a free creative. And you're like, no, I like this.
No, but I mean, I think it buys me a lot of freedom to be creative.
Oh, I love that.
I don't have to. I have so many friends that are trying to do design full time that it becomes a grind. Get enough stuff out onto the market to make a living at it. And I'm making a living at Wingspan, and everything else is just like icing on the top and just fun being creative. Yeah.
It sounds
it's a huge luxury in this industry.
It sounds like an earned luxury. So it sounds like your games by default often teach people a lot. You mentioned Mariposas. You mentioned Sanibel, Wingspan, and I'm sure there are several others, and please do send me the link. I would love to put them in the show notes. But it sounds like your games are always informative and fun. Is that the case, or has that just kind of happened?
So far, yes. I mean, it's not like a 100% commitment that I make, but I will always have some element of education. I mean, some of it's pretty subtle. Like Sanibel is arguably like we put a couple pages in the rule book about the actual critters that make the shells, and like this is like I don't know, just little fun facts about the different animals that you're picking up on the beach, or the shells of the the animals whose shells you're picking up on the beach. But like, is that really like a teaching game? Or is it just like, oh, here's some fun information that you can interact with if you want, but you could also play the game and never read that stuff, and it would work just fine. But they're very reality based. I really resonate with games that are about something in the world. Instead of making stuff up. I don't know why that or what that says about me.
No, I mean, I think
I'm like, I didn't grow up on Dungeons and Dragons. Like that's not, like all the fantasy stuff is just like not my jam, and I don't know why.
I don't know. I mean,
there's enough magic in the world already.
Well, I applaud that you are making magic out of like an everyday occurrence. Like you're able to make an experience to like come to the tabletop. You're able to make entertainment, education in a way that doesn't feel like education. It sounds pretty cool. I'm interested to play the Mariposa game. I love butterflies. To me, they're like a spirit animal. So I'm very interested to check that. Gonna get my husband to buy it for me. Bring it home. He's the game master in our house. So I want to get into some advice for aspiring designers. Is there some key advice that you would give to game inventors or aspiring game inventors who are looking to create more complex and engaging games? Perhaps they've gotten the feedback that a lot of their ideas are, that roll and move concept. What would you recommend they do to level up their game design skills?
For my process, it's always about getting it to the table and not trying to work it all out in your head. I often, if I'm aspiring for something to be fairly complex, I'll still start with a small piece of it and then figure out how to layer things on top of that. Like I talked about with Sanibel, right? Like just a small piece of picking up the shells. Okay, this is kind of working, but it needs something more. Like what do I add to give it a little bit more? More than like, because if you try and work everything out in your head before you make a prototype, there's a decent chance that you'll spend a lot of time working it out, and then in your first playtest you'll realize like you didn't think of this one thing that invalidates half of that work that you put in, right? So much better to just like test and iterate. That's very much my process.
And like, at what point do you test? Like, so say you do, like, actually, do you remember the first set of rules of Sanibel that you tested that maybe somebody else would say, oh, that's not a finished game, but you thought, no, I need to test it anyway?
I will often print something out or grab a bunch of pieces and just play it actually on my desk right here by myself. I'll like pretend to be two players. So that's my first but I have to physically manipulate the things.
But
I don't
how
do it in
deep
my
into
head.
the rules are you? Like, are the rules done enough that you could even finish the game if you wanted to, or are they all?
Oh no, it's
No.
just like, oh, would this work to move things around in this way? Like, yeah.
Tell me if you have this broken down, and you may not. Are there a checklist of things that you're looking at when you're developing your game? Like, I need to figure out the way they're going to move. I need to figure out the way they're going to collect points. I need to figure out the way they're going to sabotage. I need to figure out, like, do you have key points like that so that maybe you're like, all right, let me try out these different movements. You test those, you pick one. Let me try out these different collection mechanics, test those out, try those. Do you approach it in that way?
It's usually not like, here's a list of things I could do and I'm going to try all 5 of them. It's
Mhm.
much more of a like, this game is about X.
Mhm.
I want X to feel a certain way. X implies certain things about who you should be in the game and what actions you would be taking in the game. Okay, like what does that look like? And then I just try a thing and I figure out like what felt good, what didn't feel good, and I change the things that didn't feel good, right? And double down on the things that did feel good. So there may have been 6 other options that I never get to because something worked the first time I tried it.
Mhm.
It's very not scientific. It's much more like akin to storytelling, I think, than it is to experimentation. But it's iterating and experimenting in the sense of editing more than like trying everything.
Interesting. Okay. I want to wrap up our conversation today with a few closing questions. So you've been a published game designer for 5 years with your first game ever getting licensed. Wild. I can't believe I didn't know that. So what are you hoping to achieve in 1 year? What's your goal?
Mostly, I'm excited for Sanibel to come out. I hope that does well, that it resonates with people. We're getting little bits of that thing that we got with Wingspan of like people are sending stories about like growing up shelling on Sanibel or their grandmother took them to Sanibel or like things. There's like that little bit of like that personal connection to what the game is about.
Yeah.
That's been really cool to see already, and it's the only, we're still at least 6 months out, I think, from it coming out. Actually, we'll have a copy to preview at Gen Con, and then I want to help get the TTGDA up and more established and doing good things in the world too, and sort of help lift all the other boats. What's the saying, right? Of like. Those of us that are on the board are sort of making it an industry and want to help showcase other designers, get them established, help smooth the road for them a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. What is one bit of advice you wish those new designers knew before they got started?
A couple of things. I think, and there's sort of 2 sides of the same coin. One is to realize that everybody's just faking it, that you don't have to like know everything about game design to get going, that we're all sort of muddling through. But the flip side of that is to not be overconfident, to be like play tons of games, work as much on like developing your own sense of taste and how games work as you can, because I think that's like you want to know when your game is done.
Yeah.
In a sense of like not having it be just about the anxiety of letting a thing out into the world, but more of like, I have a sense of taste and I know that this is good. And I think that can get you a long way.
I love that. And my final and favorite question, what game blew your mind as a kid?
I loved Mousetrap.
Oh, really? I liked the look of Mousetrap, and then I remember playing it and I was like, this game is garbage. I'm not like
it's garbage as a game. It's really fun to build the thing.
Yeah.
And I still love logic puzzles. So I loved Mastermind and
cool.
Clue.
Oh, cool. Oh, man. That Mousetrap, that's a good one. Ooh, I'm excited to make that graphic. Well, Elizabeth.
I love playing with my hands. I like to physically build the thing.
Oh, I could see. Oh, are you going to do a mousetrap inspired game next? Let's see.
Oh.
I know how, like, what board game company will invest that much in plastic now for a board game? Like, if you showed a mousetrap like concept, people would be like, no, thanks. We don't want, that's too much. We don't need to make all those molds. Board games sell without all that.
Right. But the question was what blew my mind, and like,
yes,
just like that blew my mind.
It did. Yeah. Mousetrap was, I remember watching the commercials. I was like, how does it work? It's amazing. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights with us today. It was really inspiring. And now I feel like I even have a new way to think about creating games. I'm doing a project with a company now, and they want to create a small, simple game, and we're almost done. But I really like this new way of thinking about it to bring the experience to life. I mean, that actually in the game we're creating, we are bringing an experience to life, but I wish we had more time to dive into it further, because the way you're thinking, you think about it is even more in depth. And that's, I love that. It's given me a new way to think about game design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what you come up with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's done already, but
the
next one, if they want to do another one and they want to spend more time and do strategy instead of like a light family game, then yes, that would be, I'm already getting ideas. We're going to have to roll out a map for sure. Oh my gosh. From the foundational goals of game design that you shared to the Tabletop Game Designers Association and the build process that you use to create your games like Wingspan and Sanibel, it's so clear that you have massive passion and a natural talent for this work. So for all of our listeners out there, please remember that, man, it is hard to make it in the toy and game industry, but there are people like Elizabeth out there that are trying to make the path a little bit smoother for you to come on in. So don't be afraid, even though it sounds like she made a big, impactful project in this industry and had a rare experience of getting her first game licensed. But she is also clearing the path. She's out here clearing the path for you to do the same. So please reach out to Tabletop Game Designers Association if you need more help. And if you love this podcast and you haven't already left a review, what are you waiting for? Your reviews keep me coming back week after week and encourages guests like Elizabeth to join us here on the show. So wherever you're listening to this episode, please leave a rating and review. It puts a huge smile on my face. I get a notification on my phone every time a new review comes in. To connect with our guest, head over to thetoycoach.com/podcast and look for this episode. All the links will be in the show notes. As always, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I know your time is valuable and that there are a ton of podcasts out there, so it truly means the world to me that you tune into this one. Until next week, I'll see you later, toy people.
Thanks for listening to the Making It in the Toy Industry podcast with Azhelle Wade. Head over to thetoycoach.com for more information, tips, and advice.